Please take a moment to listen to this disclosure from the Common Ground podcast. The Common Ground podcast is dedicated to exploring commonality among individuals with diverse perspectives. Our guests may present unique worldviews related to health, psychology, and overall well-being. Please note that the Common Ground podcast does not directly promote or endorse any specific ideas, concepts, or actions discussed during our episodes. Listeners are encouraged to approach the information shared with discernment and to consult with their mental and/or physical health providers before making any changes to their health or wellness practices. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not directly reflect the opinions of the Common Ground podcast. Your well-being is important, and we advocate for informed decision-making. Thanks for listening.
The biggest belief and the biggest reason why I believed and wanted to believe into it, and I think it's the best way to put it, is I was looking for something that was, I don't know, magical and different out of this world that was not the way this world works at all, because my world was shattering altogether.
Especially for men, like men's purpose either comes in work or faith. Like that's where they have to find their purpose. That's what drives them to go. If a man can't find purpose in either his work or his faith, he feels incomplete. Where I think women find their purpose in a man. And that's why you see women run from relationship to relationship, or when things crumble, they want to find a new man because their purpose is, their identity is family. Their identity is relationship. Where a man's identity is work or faith.
So of course anything can be an idol, and I do recognize that, but it was just, you think about something as innocent as Disney, and this is the irony of how the enemy works, right? Like, Braden, I want to hear your thoughts on this too, is that he can take something seemingly so wildly innocent, like a Marvel movie or a Disney movie, and that can become the alternate reality in which you want to exist, and now all of a sudden that's your position of faith. That is something that I had never conceptualized before.
When I was in middle school, I was bullied a little bit. I got choked out in the locker room. I remember seizing on the ground because I was choked out. And when I got home, my dad said some pretty horrible things like, "What, do you want me to go kill him? I'll show you how it is." Because it's the first time that I wanted to end my own life. And he ended up telling me that he was going to show me how it was done. And just like a whole bunch of stuff is not how you should handle your kid in that state, especially since he didn't even do anything really bad in the situation.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast, where stories connect, perspectives collide, and purpose is found in the middle.
Every week, we sit down with unique and inspiring guests that come from all walks of life. People who challenge the status quo, overcome the odds, and live with intentionality.
Whether you're driving to work, on your morning walk, or just looking for that spark to ignite your week, you're in the right place.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast with your hosts, John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Common Ground podcast. I'm your host, Sydney Curtin, and joined with me is the brilliant mastermind behind the Common Ground Project USA, my partner in crime, John Fletcher. You can call him Philly. How's it going, Philly?
It is going fantastic.
Well, as you know, we can't start or end each episode without one of your brilliant dad jokes, so hit me with it.
So, as you know, I'm such a young guy, but the older that I get, I remember all the people that I lost along the way. Maybe a career as a tour guide wasn't my best choice.
Maybe not. We have a release of liability, right?
Yeah, we do.
I'm just kidding. All right, rate Philly's dad joke as always in the comments. Give us a 1 to 10. We gotta feel out the vibe that you guys are liking for his dad joke. Sometimes he brings us 2, and then we get to vote on those. But when it's 1, he gets to be judged on a scale of 1 to 10. So, well, I'm very excited for today's episode. This episode is personal to me. We have our guest, Braden Perkins, with us. And so today's guest is someone that I've known since I was about, I guess it would be about 12 years old, maybe 13. But I've had the rare privilege of watching his life not just unfold, but forge him. Braden has walked through childhood abuse, family trauma, and the complexities of co-parenting and raising kids. Obstacles that in today's society, many men would retreat or allow it to harden them. And instead, I've gotten to witness up close and personal him confront them head on, along with just his whole faith, his journey to faith, with him going from agnostic to Christian. And it wasn't about avoiding the pain, but learning where to place it. So today, Braden shows up as the man that he's become, grounded, resilient, and unapologetically honest, ready to share his story with courage and conviction. So please joining me in welcoming my friend, Braden Perkins.
Hi.
How's it going?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Good. Well, so for those of our viewers that don't know you, tell us where you're calling in from, what you do for work now.
I'm calling in from Florida, uh, all the way just about south of Tampa, and I am a door-to-door salesman.
How do you enjoy that?
I really like to work. Um, it's nice still being outside, but not being in an office setting. I'm used to construction, so this is kind of a new job for me.
Yeah, it is. Door-to-door is an interesting beast. I run a door-to-door sales team, so I totally get that for sure. And you've got kiddos too, right?
I do.
Okay, very nice. And how old are they?
One is 5 months old, and then the other one is 8 years old.
Itty bitty. And both girls?
Both girls.
Okay, very cool. Awesome. So, were you a believer when you entered into parenthood, or did it happen after your first daughter? Because I know your youngest is only 5 months old.
In the way that I believe now, no.
Okay. So, tell us a little bit about how you how were you raised in your childhood in terms of belief, and where did you, for a period of time, lose faith? Let's start there.
Oh, growing up, I pretty much just went to church every once in a while with like friends and stuff. Because both my parents were different. My dad was a uh Protestant, I believe, and then my mom was a Jehovah's Witness, so we just kind of stayed away from the church, but allowed me to explore myself. And then after a few huge things that happened in my life, I really went away from it, and I still knew there was something, but I started to, I guess, dabble into other religions, mostly Norse paganism. And then I came back in a hotel room while I was homeless, and
Yeah.
a true understanding of Christ, I guess.
So, you know what? Before we even go into, because you mentioned that some of the things that you went through in your life is what had you stray from faith. And I want to go there. But before we go there, can you, for our viewers that aren't familiar, a lot of people know conceptually what Christianity is. Can you explain a little bit about Norse paganism just so that people understand how to the opposite side of the spectrum, how far you went?
Um, I can't really say I went like very far. Um, but the biggest belief and the biggest reason why I believed and wanted to believe into it, and I think it's the best way to put it, is I was looking for something that was, I don't know, magical and different out of this world that was not the way this world works at all, because my world was shattering altogether. Um, like I went looking for different places. I even went to ChatGPT saying what religion they would believe, and then it went to all this other stuff, and I gave up on that. But it's mostly just, you plentiful of gods. You have, Freya, which is pretty much the mother who, like, for fertility, all that other stuff. Thor, um, Odin, the god of gods, a lot of stuff like that. Um, Different worldview on how it came to be, but there's still a lot of stuff in it that seems like it translates into Christianity in a way, but kind of like a little twists to make it not true, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So would you say that it was from my understanding, was it more curiosity or was it more like it was a cool thing to do with the people around and that's how you started looking at it?
Uh,
Or like what even I mean, I know you said chat GBT, but what made you even, want to look for something like that on chat GBT?
so one of the people I was working with at that time, um, actually two of the people I was working with at the time, one was Greek pagan, and the other one was Norse pagan. So I was really looking into like both of those. I got really close with one of those two, and I just saw how he was and like how he seems to be happy all the time and stuff. So I think I was trying to find a lot more of that part of it. Um, Although looking back at it, I really don't think he was happy at all. But that's kind of where that came in, was just trying to find really my way in some type of understanding and purpose of life.
So, one of the things that's interesting to me is that after all the stuff that you had gone through that we're going to get to here in a minute, or at least some of them, it's interesting that your reaction was to redefine your faith. Why is that?
Because I never understood my faith in the first place.
So it was like the need for a meaning on something outside of the world itself.
Yeah, I thought I thought before that just believing in God without even knowing Him would do things for me, but I didn't even know who He was or how He acted or anything.
That makes sense.
I
Isn't that
think
interesting though, John? Like
well,
that
that's what I was
when
gonna
people go through traumatic things and that their reaction is to go to their faith.
well, the comment I was gonna say was kinda similar to that is it's not only that, I think especially for men, like, men's purpose either comes in work or faith. Like, that's where they have to find their purpose, that's what drives them to go. If a man can't find purpose in either his work or his faith, that's he feels incomplete. Where I think women find their purpose in a man. And that's why you see women run from relationship to relationship, or when things crumble, they want to find a new man because their purpose is their identity is family. Their identity is relationship. Where a man's identity is work or faith. I got to have one of those two things. So to me, it kind of makes a lot of sense that as soon as his world's crumbling and he doesn't have that identity in either work or faith, he seeks out the faith because that's the easier thing. He can have more control over finding his faith than he can his job situation.
I mean, I would argue that I could find a new job in 5 minutes. If I click apply on 10 things Indeed, I'll have 9 offers in an hour. But I mean, like, I get conceptually what you're saying. It's just like, it's just interesting to me that that's where people place the blame, because it's almost like there's nobody here that can come back and say that that's not true.
I mean, at that time, I had the best paying job I ever had, so switching jobs wouldn't have been something to help.
What were you doing at the time?
I was doing construction security for a little bit. Um, but they were paying more than any of the construction jobs on that job site. So,
Sure. What's your perspective on that? Because I don't disagree with John. So I guess the question is twofold. Like his statement about when things feel out of control, men going towards faith or work. I don't disagree. I think it might go deeper than that, but not because John didn't say it the correct way, just because he was summarizing. And then the second thing being, you turned towards redefining your faith versus, for example, work or whatever else have you.
um, I think it depends. Like, because I do agree with that with most men, but I think it kind of depends on how somebody was raised. Because when I was growing up, I turned towards like Marvel and like any fantasy world when I was going through something. So that fantasy world I wanted to become true at some point. So it ended up being faith for that.
That makes sense. I mean, it's a very common escape for people in general, not like cinematics necessarily, but the need for an alternate reality to escape their reality. So, and I think that people, you're right, do that in a lot of different ways. I know that my son's family, like his paternal side of the family, is very, very into Disney. And so, like, just to kind of snowball off of that, they've got a lot of dysfunction on their side of the family, as all families do. So, no hit on them. I love them dearly. But it's just, I see them all retreat to Disney specifically. Like, my son's dad, his mom was one of three girls, and like their family thing was Disney. And so it just feels like they worship Disney. Like Disney was the ultimate getaway vacation. That's what they did multiple times a night, was get together and watch Disney movies. I mean, all of their clothes have like either a Disney logo or it's related to a Disney quote, and it feels cultish. And I don't mean that in a condescending way, because again, I love these people, but it's like people subscribe to something outside of faith that is also not reality, because that is what I want to believe in. You know what I mean? Like, I want to believe that there's something good, something magical, something out of this world that isn't this hurt that I deal with.
Yep. Yeah, I can 100% agree with that.
This is a tangent. I actually saw a clip yesterday. It's an important tangent because I want thoughts on this. Okay. It was a former paganist that he worshiped Satan. He was talking about the 5 realms where Satan can enter into a man's body, even if they're a believer, and it requires consent, and it requires willful defiance on the believer's part. Like, if you know the word of God enough to know that what you're doing is wrong and you still choose to do it. For example, you're saved, you're a believer, but you indulge in lust, right? If you continue to allow that door to be open, then you're actually allowing a doorway for Satan to oppress you and to enter or to use you. So this individual was not a believer at the time, but he had grown up with the knowledge of God and with the knowledge of Satan. And long story short, Satan had convinced him that he was God, and he believed that this figure that was following him he was doing something for the kingdom, as distorted as this was at the time. And he acknowledges that and talks about it in much more detail than I'm going to. But one of the things that he said of the 5, like, I'm not going to go through all 5. One of them was, and I forget exactly how he worded it, but it was he basically created the comparison of other gods, right? So he talks about money, he talks about lust, but he goes, but even something as simple as the worship of something that is a false reality is the worship of another god. And he used the analogy of Disney, which was really, really interesting to me, because nobody thinks about Disney as the worship of another god. But the way that he words it makes so much sense. I'll have to like drop it so that maybe our viewers can put in the comments their thoughts on it. But it was very fascinating.
Well, Sydney, what is an idol?
A what?
What is an idol?
Nigel?
Idol.
Idol. Sorry, anything that takes the place. I was like, what's a Nigel? I was like, I don't know. Anything that takes the place above God. So, of course, anything can be an idol. And I do recognize that. But it was just, you think about something as innocent as Disney. And this is the irony of how the enemy works, right? Like, Braden, I want to hear your thoughts on this too, is that he can take something seemingly so wildly innocent, like a Marvel movie or a Disney movie, and that can become the alternate reality in which you want to exist. And now all of a sudden, that's your position of faith. That is something that I had never conceptualized before.
Yeah, no, that's actually very true. And I guess thinking about it that way, it has been very true, had been very true for my life growing up. Like the way I thought about it for a little bit was probably, I thought it was, up until possibly this point, was God's way of giving me something to escape the pain. But then I pretty much worshiped. I I didn't miss a movie in theaters. I read the comic books. I did all the 9 yards, but I went there instead of to the Bible.
It's interesting. Just people's coping, like just thinking about human psychology is fascinating to me in that capacity, and no belittling or condescending way. It's just like that was never a thought of like I don't even watch TV, and if I read a book, it's an audiobook when I'm working out. But like how that is such a real escape for people is such a new perspective for me because I hadn't really thought about it that way until kind of exploring this idea of Norse paganism based on this episode. Like I just didn't even cross my mind. I was like, this is a really unhealthy coping mechanism was what came to my mind in relation to my son's family. Like that's how it was for me is like, why do people worship Disney? Why do people go to Disney and pay thousands of dollars to go to Disney? Like, I can't relate to that. And it doesn't take away from the validity of it, but it's just really eye-opening for me. That whole idea of what John said, anything can become an idol.
Yeah, 100%.
And what the devil does very well is he makes idols seem so trivial. And what I mean by that is like, we all want to what is it, the water cooler Monday or water coolers. They talk about how everybody gathers around the water cooler and talks about the latest episode on whatever. But that just takes an idol and makes it seem all we're doing is talking about, I'm not really worshiping the show or putting the show above anything else, but I have to watch the show so I know how to have that conversation at the water cooler because I want to be accepted. And you don't even realize that what you're doing is you've just made that an idol because you can't miss it. It comes before anything because you are looking just for the thing of being accepted when it comes to conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Because that's something I actually had to force myself out of it. Because I started recognizing that everything I was doing, I was putting in front of God. After I really came to Christ, I started, instead of putting on a Marvel movie to fall asleep to or watching like anything outside of the world, I would actually switch to putting on The Chosen or King David or something else like that, just to put him at the forefront of everything I'm doing.
But now let me say this though too. The devil is very good because he can make that Chosen the same thing as Friends.
Yeah, 100%.
And because we're doing it religiously, we think we're not putting it, I ain't putting this above God because it's about God. I'm learning about God. But if that becomes more important than spending time with God, then that's an idol.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten to the point now to where like even because I'm back to watching like Marvel and stuff because I don't think it's bad to watch if you're able to like adjust yourself.
Yeah.
But like I fight God into literally everything I do. Like I'll be sitting there watching a Marvel movie like, geez, this type of stuff that you put in this world is so amazing. And like I'll literally just either in my head or out loud just like talk. That way I'm inviting him into everything.
This is a question that I tell people to ask themselves all the time when worrying about stuff like that. And this is something that for me has always been a passion of my life in Acts. It's either Philip or it's another one. But God calls him in the middle of the night to go to a road to meet an Ethiopian. And in the middle of the night, he gets up and he goes to the road, meets an Ethiopian, and evidently converts the Ethiopian. But my point is that what you're doing or the activity that you are participating in, if God was to say to you any second during that activity, go to this road, are you willing to go to the road, or is that activity too big for me to leave? And I would not leave because now that's the difference of when something's become an idol versus not an idol. Like you said, I think you can sit there and enjoy Marvel, but if that Marvel thing becomes more important than God saying, I need you here, to do this, to witness to this person, because I think God does that all day in our lives. And I'll be honest, I fail continuously at it, because I see people who, and I've had conversations with people who are like, yeah, God told me to pull off the road and go talk to this person. And I'm like, why am I not hearing God tell me to pull over to the road and talk to somebody? That's because whatever I'm doing is more important than listening to his voice. And so it can be good things, it could be bad things. God isn't concerned a lot. Well, he is what we're watching and what we're listening to and what we're doing, but he isn't there like a nun gonna slap your hand with a ruler if you watch something or listen to something. But if the spirit is if you can't hear the spirit because you're involved in something, you're definitely not doing the right thing.
Sure.
But let's move into like you get into um this Norwich paganism. What was your journey like through that? It seems like you found, like, one of the things I think you said, you realized that you weren't as happy as you thought you would be. What was some of the things like what did you experience through it? What was your journey through it?
Um, being Norse pagan, I didn't fully deep dive into it just before all that stuff. Like I don't like fully know it. Like I was reading into it a little bit and kind of going into that type of stuff, and I would tell people I was Norse pagan, and I would try to go drink only mead, and I'd try to do a lot of that type of stuff. But I I mostly found myself going between finding all the wrong people in every aspect. Um, Everywhere I went, as soon as I saw someone else had at least that same belief or at least something similar that wasn't Christianity, I went and was with them. And I will say it is very true looking back. You'll know them by their fruits. Um, don't It's one of the biggest things is don't listen to people's words. Um, I ended up having 4 different jobs that year. I couldn't stay to one. I couldn't like understand my thought process on anything I was going to. I was getting more angry with people. Um, I actually remember one time I was on a phone call with, I mean, I've always been nice to like Mormons that come up to my door and stuff and all that. And I remember I gave them my number because I have no problem with them talking to me. I've never really had that problem. I know a lot of people like, oh no, they're knocking on my door. So I gave them my number, and they ended up calling me like 7 months after because I ended up moving, and I like went off on these poor kids, and like some horrible things that like I didn't say anything bad towards them. I think I was I think I was more mad at God at that point rather than actually believing something else, but I wanted to believe something else because I really like laid into why God can't be real in that conversation, and I was arguing the fact some of the small things I knew in the Bible that I didn't understand context to or anything. And then from there, like a few months later, that's where I ended up homeless from a breakup. It's not that I didn't like have the money to get a new place. I just decided I was going to stay in my car to be able to move to where I'm at now. Um, that way I can see my daughter more and all that. But there was almost no way out of being homeless until I met God. there was no way out. Like my life deteriorated from me having a decent apartment, seeing my daughter regularly, um, going into like a lot of like my life was actually not horrible, in any means. Just dealing with the PTSD and a lot of other stuff from stuff growing up, or some other bad stuff that I'm sure we're gonna get to. Um, I just saw all that stuff and I just wanted to just get away from it. And I figured the best way to do that was to go to Norse paganism. Once I did that, everything deteriorated slowly, but I couldn't see it until like a few months ago.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. Well, so you kind of touched on it. I'm going to take us there, and you can go into whatever detail level you would like to. But can you explain what happened with your dad? Because that was kind of the big event, and there was a lot of stuff in your childhood leading up to that. But I don't think that anybody, and I witnessed this personally, really acknowledged that on the level that you deserved. And I think that for me personally, being an not outsider in your life, but somebody that's known you for all of these years, I think that was the moment where everybody was like, oh shit, he wasn't lying. And there was only a select few of us that were like, okay, like that's like this is everything that he said, that we trusted him and we cared about him and we wanted to support him through. Like this is now it's out there.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I might make it shorter, not to spare detail, but because it is pretty much all the way leading up to what happened then with my dad was it's pretty much my whole life, up until I was 21. So growing up, uh, I first started seeing like the small mental abuse stuff with my dad going on towards my oldest brother. So I don't really like, I was just thinking about this last night, and like I don't think there's ever a time where I didn't see my dad being abusive. I mean, I saw him during good times, obviously, but like I think I was the youngest one more than likely exposed to it because my oldest brother is 8 years older than me, and that's when he started feeling it. And then it went into my other brother when he was about 10 and 12, I believe. And then for me, it started happening when I was like 10. And like a lot of those things were, I mean, when I was in middle school, I was bullied a little bit. I got choked out in the locker room. I remember seizing on the ground because I was choked out. And when I got home, my dad said some pretty horrible things like, "What, do you want me to go kill him? I'll show you how it is." Because like it's the first time that I wanted to end my own life, and he ended up telling me that he was going to show me how it was done, and just like a whole bunch of stuff is not how you should handle your kid when that in that state, especially since he didn't even do anything really bad in the situation. He literally was getting done with PE, got choked out in the locker room, ended up seizing. Then growing up, I had guitars thrown at me and a whole bunch of other stuff until I joined wrestling. And wrestling gave me a way to defend myself eventually. There's times I had to like literally take my dad down, crossface him, a whole bunch of other stuff. Like he still threatened a lot of things against me. Um, he, I mean, the one thing he never did, at least to me, I don't know about my brothers, was actually throw a punch, but he did throw guitars, which I think is worse. He picked me up on my throat. He did a lot of things growing up there. And then when I was 19 or 20, my daughter had been born for a year or two at this point, and I had no choice but to live there because child support was super expensive, and I was only making like $11 an hour at the time. And he would do like small little things that it'd be her bedtime or nap time or whatever, and he'd pick up his guitar and play it as loud as it'll go, so she couldn't sleep or all this other stuff. We'd get into arguments. He threatened to slash my tires on my vehicle. He would. It got so bad to the point where he tried to attack me with my daughter in my arms, and I had to throw her to the couch to protect her, and I had to take him down and like handle the situation. Um, up until a point to where like I thought he was getting better, and I thought things were going better, and this was a few years later. My life started like things started going better. My first daughter's mom just told me I could start getting 50-50 custody. Um, then my dad started seeing a girl that was 2 years older than me while still married to my mom. And he tried to hook me up with her before that, kind of a weird situation. Um, and I didn't know about this till after everything, but like he started like really deteriorating in a very bad way. He ended up threatening to take his own life, going up to Vitavu, if anyone knows what that is in Wyoming. We ended up talking him out of it. He came back, and I still was under the impression like he's at least better. He's not like attacking me. He's not cheating on my mom anymore, which is I didn't know at that time. Like he was asking me questions at a bar, and I was like, honestly, the biggest thing that like I think would really help you out is if you don't want to be with mom, just leave. Like I think that would be the best option. Like is it going to be happy for anybody? No. But the only thing like you cheating, all this other stuff has done in the past is hurt you guys. And then 2 weeks later after that, I got at 11 p.m. She said that my dad just called her, said that she killed Abby and Mike. Abby is the girl he was seeing that's 2 years older than me. And Mike was the guy that she was also seeing with my dad along, like not together, but like they didn't like each other in the whole situation. And he said that he was going to kill himself. I'm going to go look for him. I'm going to go find him. And I told her, no, you just call the cops. Whatever they say to do is what you do. They will find him. Like, don't worry about any of that stuff. And I'll spare the details on like how that happened because I have that very vivid in my head. I still have dreams about it. But we ended up staying in like she ended up going to a King Soopers parking lot. They told her to like pretty much hide, not be at the house, all that other stuff. They called me, asked me if I could know where he was. I was like, honestly, I don't know. I found this out from my mom. Do you know where she is? And they said that they couldn't tell me, but if she wanted to tell me, she could. So I ended up sitting with my mom in a King Soopers parking lot till 4 a.m. I was the only one in that moment that was really calm, trying to convey information, trying to like really figure out what's going on until, that 4 a.m. hit and the cop came up and said, he's gone. This is the first thing he said when he walked up was, he's gone. And then my mom asked, what about the other two? And then you could just see the look on the cop's face and just looked down. And she just started bawling. And in that moment, I knew I had to go. I had to move back in with her to help her. Immediately, I texted my landlord. I told him that I couldn't live in my house anymore. I had to go help my mom out because everything just happened. I told him kind of what happened, and I told him he'll probably see it in the news. So Next day, I grabbed all my stuff, moved in with my mom, started helping her out. And then a little bit later, there was a coroner that came in. There was like cops all around the house. They were looking for like pipe bombs and a whole bunch of other stuff in the house. They didn't find anything. We didn't think there was anything. He found a shell tumbler that they thought could have been a pipe bomb. But then when the coroner came in, she sat us all down and said, if you want to hear exactly what happened, you can, because they have it on camera. And she explained the whole thing. That's the part I'm definitely not going into, but I honestly wish I never heard it, because it gave me PTSD just knowing, because I knew everyone in the situation. She explained it in vivid detail, and I ended up having dreams as if I were my dad doing that exact thing in the exact place it was. So that's the biggest part of my life that was the roughest, I guess.
It's hard for me because I remember when you started wrestling, and I had never met your dad because we just went to school together. So it was like we were good friends at school. And I mean, we were good friends outside of school, but it wasn't something where at that age, even before we were driving, that we were with each other outside of school. So like we didn't get the context of each other's at home lives. But I remember so distinctly when you got your ear got hurt in wrestling. Do you remember that?
I mean, it happened so many times I don't remember each one now, but
It was like the first time it happened when you started wrestling, and I don't remember what year it was because I just remember the conversation so distinctly, but, like, I just, like I remember where I was talking to you in Mountain View, and I was like, "Ow, dude, like, are you okay?" And he was like his exact response was, "That's nothing compared to what I get at home." And, like, it landed like bricks on my chest. Like, I just remember in that moment, like, because I was going through different but similar things. And so that's one of the reasons why me and Braden were friends. But nobody was acknowledging it. And it's just like, what do you do with that information as a kid? You know what I mean? Like that's what we were. We were kids. We were babies. Like I look back at like my brothers at that age in high school, because I'm 5 and 7 years young. I'd be the equivalent of like Cody. Like I'm just like older, but like 5 even more than that. And so it's I don't know. Like just looking back is like you don't know what to do with that information. And then something blows up in your face and it's like I feel like as like children tend to blame themselves for that. Like kids are resilient, but it's like I saw this all along and I didn't know what to do with the information.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there was also a point where when my brothers were back home, they tried to take me out of the house. Cops came up. My dad tried to blame us for trying to do police suicide on him because they were trying to get me out of the house with the stuff he was doing. And the cops made me go back in. It's not like there was an easy way out of it.
Wow. That's a really deep um and real story. Um so how did so that all that played into your role of going to paganism? Is that what you were saying? Or is that the role coming out of paganism?
That was everything going into it. Um, it took a few years after that, because right after I was praying, I started praying a lot more. I started praying, and then like while I was praying, I was like, "Hey, can I talk to my dad?" Because I didn't know how praying worked. I still barely do, but I didn't know you couldn't talk to people in that situation or whatever. And like the weirdest part about that, then the reason why I stopped praying was when I would ask to do that, and like I would apologize for what happened to Abby, and I would apologize for what would happen to Mike and all that other stuff. But like when I would ask to pray to someone else besides my God, um, I felt like I was literally burning, like physically burning. Like I felt it actually on my skin. Um, so like it really made me stop praying altogether for a while.
So I don't know if this is what I'm hearing, and maybe this isn't exactly what you're saying, but I almost feel like what you just said, that part of your journey into paganism was almost a way of trying to reconnect with your dad and maybe get some maybe answers. I don't know if you were looking for answers or if you were looking for something, but you were definitely, it sounds like you were looking to connect somehow with your dad.
Not really. I would pray to talk to my dad just to try to say I forgave him.
Okay. Or at least to get closure with your dad. Okay.
Yeah.
That
But the paganism came years after that. It's when I was finally actually dealing with my pain. It took me 2 years to actually process everything. Um, and when I finally started processing everything, I started getting into a lot of fights with my family. Um, I started doing like a lot of stuff that was probably not the best things to do. Um,
so
it ruined my relation to my with my family to this day. Um, I barely talk to a lot of them.
I have to say this because I've been struggling with this lately. Like the last 3 weeks of my life have been hell, like hell. And it wasn't until yesterday that my brother called me and something happened on the call, and he was just telling me that he was praying for me. And I guess I had this epiphany that it was doubt doesn't mean shallow. Um, if anything, it means that you're paying attention.
Good.
So not believing in something at a period in time doesn't make you empty, it makes you honest. And Psalms 13 shows us that when David is like lamenting over how long will you allow my enemies to prosper over me? And like this prayer, I mean, it's a gruesome prayer, but like he's crying out to God, like, how long? Like, what have I done wrong to you? What am I not doing? What do I need to be doing? How long are you going to allow my enemies to prosper over me? Like it's just a cry out, and it's a prayer with no answers. And I think that that's where people get lost in space, in prayer. Like that space is that, especially when they don't understand that you can bring all of those ugly thoughts to the Lord. Like God doesn't say that you need to bring your requests or your anguish to me, like only have a relationship with me if everything's good. That would be like me and Braden saying like, hey, I don't want to be friends with you unless like if your life is pretty and it's got a bow on it. Like talk to me when you've got the highs, like I want to be part of the highs, but I don't want to be part of the lows. That's not friendship.
No,
That's just that's a cheerleading squad. If anything, it's like, let me cheer for you when you're winning. But like my relationship with Braden runs a lot deeper than that. And that's how real relationships in general are. It means I'm part of the lows and I'm part of the highs. And God is the same way. He doesn't expect your prayers to come wrapped in ribbon. He wants to hear your heart, and that Psalms 13 is what really highlights that. And it's also a tool, I will say, that Satan uses to destroy not only faith but relationships, right? Because if we can't get past the lamenting and then we hold on to that as anger, even if our relationship with the Lord is restored, then we harbor resentment in our personal relationships because it's, you could have done this, I could have done this, I'm mad at you for this, and then like we never come to a resolution over it. And it's been something that's been heavy on my heart lately, not because I know how to deal with it, because I fucking don't, like, but like it's just been something that my relationship with my family is in pieces too. I don't know how to reconcile the stuff that's happened with my oldest daughter. And so hearing you say that just like resonates, because less than 24 hours ago, my brother called me and he was like, hey, I just wanted to call you before you come up for Christmas. Because like, and I was anxious about this call because he said, I want to talk to you, which means that I'm in trouble before I even get up there. And I'm the oldest sibling of three. So I'm not Braden. I'm not the youngest. I'm like, if anybody's in trouble, like it's one of you two, because I'm 5 and 7 years older than you guys.
yeah,
But like he's calling me and I want to hear his heart. Like I'm the one that protected these kids from a lot of the stuff that we went through. And he just calls and he's like, hey, I just want you to know that like nobody's, against you. Like we all love you. And it just like, he was like, I don't have anything to say. And I just wanted to let you know that, like, I'm really excited to see you and your kids for Christmas. And then I told him some of the stuff that's been going on because he was like, I feel like you've been mad at me. So I filled him in on some of the things that have been going on these last 3 weeks. And he just said, I just want you to know that I'm going to like relentlessly be praying for you.
yeah.
And he was the one that directed me to Psalms 13. So I read it and it just kind of came full circle for me. So you saying that about the relationship with your family, because I know your brothers, one of them specifically more than the other. Obviously, I'm closest with you, but like
Yeah.
I know both of your brothers. And so it's hard for me because like I see that same dynamic being of three siblings and I'm of three siblings. And it's what Jacob said to me yesterday, just like landed so hard and so heavy that it's had me thinking about that.
Can I step in for a second? And
Please.
and I want to speak mainly to you, Sydney, but also to our audience. And I think sometimes we get the rose-colored glasses when thinking about God. We think about stories like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego,
Right.
and they go, "We will serve our God even if He doesn't save us." And what happens? God saves them.
Yeah.
And we see God saving people. We see God, um, and they become all the beautiful stories on how in moments of great despair, Daniel in the lion's den, you know, time and time again, how God just saves instantly.
Right.
Um, but I love that you brought up the Psalms and David, because the point of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was, we will serve our God even if He does not save us.
Right.
And we miss
Right.
that line, because He does save us, and it doesn't get played enough. And when we're going through our hard times, God doesn't promise instant instant reconciliation or
Nothing.
whatever. It it can be a long road. I think it was 3 or 5 years that David was dealing with a lot of those psalms.
Hmm.
It wasn't something that instantaneously um was was fixed.
Right.
Um I know me with my oldest daughter. I don't I pray every day that our relationship heals. I know it may come down to my last breath on earth that we get reconciled. God doesn't promise me. God doesn't promise that it's going to happen. Um, and
Yeah.
obedience is not determined on result. Obedience is determined on our act, and that's what we have. So I just want to, because I think a lot of times we hear about obedience and we hear about, God's grace, and we see this instantaneous stuff and we expect that and almost demand it. And we get upset
Yeah.
when He doesn't do it on our timing.
Well, and but there's a reason for that, and I think that it's what a lot of people exploring their faith, and Braden, maybe this is relevant to your story, maybe it's not, but like I think that a lot of people are under the belief that if they suddenly come to God and say, "Okay, I will give you my life, or I will give you my faith if you fix this situation," but what they fail to recognize within that is that faith and God's sacrifice on the cross, Jesus' sacrifice on the cross for our sins, does not remove the consequence of sin. That is a consequence that was a prerequisite of before you believed or during your belief, doesn't really matter. But like God promises to work all things for the good of those who love Him, but He does not promise to remove the consequences of our defiance. And that is hard. Like that's a hard pill to swallow, because just because I was in a bad place with God, I still got pregnant outside of wedlock. I still chose to go through with an adoption thinking that that's what I was doing for honoring God. I may have been honoring God, but I can't see 18 years into the future to decide how He's going to work that for the good if I continue to believe and to trust His will for my life, her life, my kids' life. Like I can't see all that. And so then people lose faith because it's not on their vision or their timeline, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I'll say that that's exactly how I came to faith. Um, but honestly, every time I feel like I need to be more patient, I honestly pray about pretty much everything. Um, honestly, part of it, and I think something a lot of people don't realize, if you pray about like even the anxieties of your life, and no matter how you pray, like, oh my God, this is irritating me, or like, hey, why are you doing this to me, or anything like that, it can be very therapeutic. Even in the situation you're in.
Yeah, well, I think that it is. I think that it's just that people choose not to, whether it's because they're angry or whatever. But it's really important to recognize, like, faith doesn't faith doesn't like arrive as relief. And I think that that's what people hope when they go searching for faith, is that it will arrive in their life as some sort of relief system or to carry the weight. Faith arrives as responsibility. It means that you are choosing a position in which to stand, and now you are accountable for the actions that you make from this moment forward. That's why they call it carrying your cross. But that's not to be made or mistaken as an ego thing, because it's not your cross.
But one thing God does promise, and the one thing he does do, is if you are accountable, if you do give it totally over to him, then he gives you the peace that passes all understanding.
Exactly. Right.
And that's why you can see people who are going through things, and why people go, hold on, how are you peaceful about this? How are you, why aren't you more upset? Why aren't you more?
Right.
Because I know I'm not in control. I'm
Mhm.
responsible. I'm dealing with the consequences of my sin. I'm dealing with what's going on, but I know that I serve a God that cares about me. And there is a greater plan. There is a bigger piece that I don't understand, that I can't see the end to. And my faith is in him, and I can have that peace. So what was the transformation for you in bringing you back to faith, Braden?
Um, I mean, that goes into so the last relationship that I had with a kid that I have a kid with now. After we broke up and I ended up homeless, I was completely distraught on life again. Not so much to I I guess I can't say that. But I I felt very hopeless. I couldn't get myself out of sleeping in my car. I couldn't do really anything. And I had to find a way to make it to Florida for my other kid, which is we all discussed that was going to be the best option. Um, and I was being denied certain things that I can't really talk about um right now. And a lot of other stuff was just going bad in the retrospect with my other kid. And I got enough money to get a hotel room for a week. And while I was laying in that hotel room, I could just really feel the heaviness everything, of everything that was going on. And I felt like I really wanted to not be around anymore. And I was laying in the bed and I started looking up and I was praying to Freya, Odin, like, the whole shebang. And I was like, you know what? I've known it pretty much all along. Jesus, can you change my life or take my life tonight? If I don't die in my sleep tonight, I'm dedicating everything to you. Then I started getting like not even things I got, like little things of hope in small little aspects of my life that really started pushing me towards things. And I started like I think the next day I went and bought a Bible, which is just this one sitting in front of me right now. But I started reading it and I like started praying every day. I started doing everything I could to learn who God was. I'd watch podcasts about God. I started listening to, Forrest Frank. I started listening to NF again. I started listening to like a lot of like the Christian stuff for music, and even in like small things, I would start praying even while I was working or whatever else it may be. And I started fasting, and my first time fasting, at least for that reason, um, I was laying in my car and I was just praying. I was fasting. I was doing a full 24-hour thing, and I was laying there and I was asking, like, why can't I get like help, like with like something like big or like whatever, right? Like pretty much a lottery win or something, like something to finally get me out of what I've dealt with my whole life. And I started feeling like I was being like drugged backwards, like physically, for like 10 minutes. I just felt like I was being like drugged backwards. And then I stop and then I look around and I just see this gate. And I know I'm getting into like visions type stuff here, but like it's so vivid. And I saw like this gate and I looked behind me and I saw this like figure behind me that was, I couldn't see like the face to it or anything, but like I just saw it. And I knew who, what, all it was. And I pretty much asked again, like, what can I do? And like, how, like, why am I not getting this? And I look down and like, my best way to describe it is Charlie and Chocolate Factory, the girl who's like blowing up like a balloon. I pretty much saw my body doing that. He said, if you take in too much, you're gonna blow and you can't make it through the narrow gates. And then I was like, but what if I get this and I give back so much? And then like it went away and I started like pouring water out of me, like a lot, like waterfall from one side to the other of as far as the eye can see. And like I didn't hear a voice that time, but I kind of like just understood. It's like mostly what he's saying is if you have a lot, give, essentially. Stop holding everything in. Give more than anything else. And that's kind of where I think it all started, and that's where I started wanting to start my own podcast, start my own, like, start doing TikTok, YouTube, and all that stuff again, but for a purpose of showing people it's okay to come to God broken.
Goodness. That was a really hard concept for me to understand as a new believer because I think that in our humanity, life proves to us that in order to be good enough for anything, for a job, for a relationship, for to be a functioning member of a family unit, whatever it is, that you have to be cleaned up enough or behave a certain way or be good enough in a certain capacity. Like, it's very rare that humans have the ability to demonstrate unconditional love without the presence of God. And so, as a new believer and with the dysfunction of my family, like, I couldn't conceptualize that I was supposed to come broken. Like, it's that whole concept of you don't go to a doctor when you're healthy, you go to a doctor when you're sick. I couldn't wrap my head around that. I thought, like, I've got to fix all of this before I go to him. And so, yeah, that was a large part of my testimony too. But I get that more than I care to admit.
Yeah. You don't clean yourself before you take a shower.
Right, right. Yeah, the irony of all of that for sure.
Looking back on your journey through the different faith in your life, what what is the most important thing that you think that people need to look for, search for, like, or question, or what 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 do you think made a difference, the biggest difference? in your life, and what can you, encourage people or give hope to people who may not have it?
Um, the best way I describe it to people now, um, and I don't think it's the best Christian way to say it to people. Um, but I'll tell people in a very real way that there is a higher power. It's up to them to decide. But then I'll go into like like why I became a Christian and what I used to really learn the words of God and to stop worrying so much about what all these other people are saying. Because so many people talk about you need to do this or you're going to be saved or you're going to go to hell if you don't do this or all this other stuff. I just want to tell people just start out learning who he is. Because I think you're trying to use saved and hell as a way to force them into it rather than letting them learn their own way. Because it's not up to us to choose who God decides to understand the knowledge given to them.
Beautiful. Um, I think this conversation could go on for hours. I think there's a lot more to, discover, but luckily you'll be starting a podcast shortly and you'll be able to answer those questions for people.
Key takeaways.
The key takeaway for me from this conversation is that every journey is unique. And not to compare ourselves to other people, to other Christians. Braden's story is way different than a lot of other people's story. And it's not necessarily, how you got there. It's more in the fact that you got there. And it's sad that you had to go through some hard things. But I think as people go through hard things, and this is something else that we really didn't get to have the opportunity to talk about, but I truly believe we go through things for a couple reasons. And one is that's how we grow. You know, we 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 can't grow as we are not open to change. We're not open to growth. We're not open to becoming the person that we need to become. And your journey took you through some things. You had to learn certain things for certain reasons. And that brings us into the second reason, which is you go through things because you're going to impact other people. Either you're going to have people who have gone through a similar story who can now relate to you, or you're going to develop skills from your story that you can help somebody else in something different. But because of what you went through, you now can speak life into somebody else.
Mhm.
And thirdly, it's really to glorify God, because it's really his story. It's not our story. We're the actor playing the role. It is our story. We do have a part in it, but like it's all for him. So like your story, I don't want people coming from this episode being like, well, like that doesn't relate to me. No, there's things that do relate. Like we talked about, there's idols that we all have, that we put before God. We did talk about many things in here that can pertain to you, but I really think that Braden, I'm sure you have a compassion for people who have gone through similar stuff or gone through a really hard thing. I think you look at even parental figures probably different. You look at mothers in a certain way, and mothers who have gone through really tough times. I'm sure you can relate to your mom with and how she felt and how she how you went and had to be there for her. You can see that people who maybe have fathers who have dealt with mental health, issues.
Yeah.
You have I'm sure, a real compassion for those people, even if they didn't end up the way you did. So I know God is going to use you in mighty ways. You're going to be somebody who advances the kingdom of God. Just my encouragement is always put him at the forefront and make sure that it's his story and not yours. And that's my key takeaway from this episode.
Just a lot of them. Man, it's tough with somebody that you've known for this many years. But the truth is that grief doesn't end when belief begins. And just because you decide to place your faith in the person that has your best interest at heart, your consequences for your sins or the sins of somebody else, you could be the victim of somebody else's sins as a child of your parents, for example, and it still doesn't mean the consequences go away. And that's not fair. But it doesn't mean that God can't ordain it. It doesn't mean that you deserved it, but it doesn't mean that God cannot redeem and ordain those things. You can be angry, faithful, and honest at the same time. And that is hard for people to comprehend. You can have doubt, you can have anger, you can have all of these emotions and still have faith at the same time. They don't conflict each other. And that is just constantly demonstrated in the Bible. Just people that loved the Lord with all of their heart and had all of these floods of emotions. And that's really hard for people that are not believers to understand. And so I think that is a big key takeaway of mine. It's impossible to survive the things that Braden has survived without having those emotions. That is human nature. Those emotions are normal. They're healthy. They are encouraged by God. He just wants you to lament and bring them to him to carry, not for you to carry. And I think that the other thing is that the pain that life brings us, it doesn't ask our permission to change us, right? It just is that we get to choose how it changes us. So it's not going to ask your permission. Pain's just going to show up at your doorstep and it's like, boom, I'm here. And you get to decide what you do with it. But Braden, if you had one thing that you wanted our audience to take away from today's episode, and there will be many more to come, what would your key takeaway be, or what would you want to leave people with going through something similar, or maybe just listening that was impactful for you?
Never count yourself out, because you're stronger than you believe, even in your worst times. And another part, I didn't really talk about this as much, but stop being so hard on men that have gone through things, because that's one of the biggest leading reasons to why male suicide is so high, because people aren't even willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
That's a great point. And as always, we want to hear your takeaways from this episode. So please share your stories, share your takeaways, share your encouragement to Braden if you want to. But let us know what you thought about this episode and what you took away from it.
The final five.
And Braden, who was your hero and why?
Well, we did talk about Marvel, so I'm going with a non-real person for a hero, and it would be Spider-Man, starting at Tobey Maguire in 2002, because it's the first time I saw something out of this world that I just fell in love with the idea of, no matter what you go through, keep pushing forward, because that's the whole premise of who Spider-Man is.
That is Isaiah's favorite superhero right now. He just had a Spider-Man birthday party, and my dad got him a Spider-Man costume for his birthday, and he would live in it if I let him very seriously.
That's how I was when I was like 3 to like 8.
That's how he is. 3 years old. Isaiah is 3. Oh my goodness. Apart from anybody necessarily having to know the intricacies of your story, like what do you want your story to stand for? If you were choosing 3 or 4 core pillars of not just brand identity, but like what you wanted people to understand about life principles.
That life sucks, but
That's
can be in the best ways possible. Not everything you go through is bad, even though it seems bad in that moment, because everything can be used for good. And find not just who you are, but what you're meant to do, and stop trying to find it in other people.
Mm.
I like it. I like it on that.
I especially love that second part because I think that happens way too often that we look for other people to find that instead of looking to God and doing it ourselves, taking that responsibility. What is either one book, one song, one verse, one quote, one saying that has really impacted you, made a difference, been a life, motto for you?
I really don't have a singular one, but if I had to pick one for it, um, now, with how my life is now, it would be Forrest Frank, no else. Because no
I
matter what
haven't,
you
I
do,
haven't done that one. Have you done that one, John?
No.
I haven't done that one either. Add it to the list. Um, Next question for you is going to be, what kind of man are you trying to model for your daughters?
biggest thing I'm trying to model for my daughters is try to be as honest as you can be. And to always show empathy towards any situation, because no matter who someone is, you never know what they went through. Um, and I'm trying to get there, but show them what essentially how to find their faith on their own. Because if I push them to it, I know it's not going to be there.
Right. It can't be a forced thing.
No. It can't. I mean, they can go through the actions, but it won't
Right.
be genuine.
Exactly.
And finally, if you could sit down, have a cup of coffee, and a conversation with somebody living or dead, who would it be and why?
You know, I talked to him a lot of times in my life, but honestly, my dad. Um, this answer definitely wouldn't have been the same years ago. Um, but just to tell him more how I forgive him for everything he's done and how I wish things could have been different.
Heard that. Braden, I love you. Thank you for being with us today. For listeners who want to connect with you, join your community, or follow future podcasts, we'll drop those links. But for now, where can they find you? Where can they go to reach out to you?
The best place I'm gonna start posting on TikTok most soon, so it'll be Blueberry Braden. Blu-ray is a thing that came from my Twitch stream, so you can also find me over there on Twitch. But I'm gonna start posting everywhere a lot. The only thing that's gonna be different for anything of where I'm at is gonna be my YouTube, which is just Braden X.
Awesome. And it's been a real honor and a pleasure to sit down with you, bro, and really get to hear your story in a more deeper level. I do see God using you in mighty and great ways, and just keep walking that narrow path. Keep again. I love one of the things you said, pouring out, because if all you're doing is taking in, you do become that big balloon girl
Yep.
in Willy Wonka. So
That was the connection I just made with Blueberry Braden. I was like, is that where that came from? Was your vision that you had?
So that came well before that. That was still when I was Norse.
I feel like we should just redefine it right here, right now. Like, if anybody asks, now you get to talk about something else.
But remember, when we take the time to hear someone's story, it gives us the opportunity to find common ground. Thank you, Braden, for being our guest today. And for Cindy and myself, it has been our pleasure to be your host, and you have been listening to the Common Ground Podcast. God bless, and good night.
And that's it for today's episode of the Common Ground Podcast. We hope you're leaving with a little more perspective, a little more purpose, and a whole lot more inspiration.
So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you to our special guest.
If today's conversation moved you, encouraged you, or challenged you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, rate it, leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more people who need to find their own common ground.
So for John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin,
we'll see you right here next week, same time, same place on the Common Ground Podcast.